Hey guys, welcome back to Loud Pedal Liberty. Um, so as promised, we're going to continue on with the 55 chassis on the back half. So today we're going to try to get this motor and training mounted. So I'm going to start off with the big block Chevy. Um, and as you know, we're also going to set this car up for a 392 Hemi. But the reason I'm going to start off with a big block Chevy is I need to get a standard for where the training is going to set. And the way I'm going to do that is I purchased some Speedway universal mounts for smaller big block Chevy. I purchased these from Speedway. See that. So these are just like a general hot rodders motor mount kit. It's pretty decent stuff, but it's we want to actually wind up with motor plates in the car, and so these are going to be only for reference. So I'm going to set these up, and I also bought a training cross member that is going to be in the car permanently. Um, but I'm going to set these up and get a really good reference for where the tranny's at. Uh, transmission placement is super important, and with this kit, with motor mount kit, I can at least get a depth for the big block Chevy. The 392 Hemi is actually shorter. Um, and it's going to adapt to our power glide transmission that's on the back of this stack injected motor. Um, so all of those things being said, anything we do for the big block Chevy should be out of the way, I hope, from mounting the Hemi. Um, so I'll tell you what, I'll grab the camera and we'll walk around and I'll kind of give you a recap of where we're at and show you what's going on. All right, fellas, and I guess fellettes. This is kind of our generalized layout. So like I said, right now we've got a big block Chevy hanging in the chassis, well, hanging from the hoist, and we're getting ready to set this up. So the previous episode, we uh, we mounted the rear four-link suspension into the factory chassis, and I really actually like how that came out. Um, Even though I mean, it's built like a tank. So that's where we're going to start today. um, is getting this engine mounted as close as we can to the proper place for a big block to go in a 55 6 7 Chevy. One thing to add too is we are going to wind up with a mid plate here. So that's basically a plate that sandwiches in between the motor and the transmission and gives it a center mounting point. Um, that being said, this is kind of a race car thing that helps to tie all of the front frame stub, front suspension, the engine, and the rest of the chassis all together, and it actually helps with a 60-foot. Moving around to the front, this will also have a motor plate in it when we're done. Those two items. So this is the front motor plate. You can see it's going to bolt in the water pump location, and then we'll trim this aluminum up and make it nice. Once we get this thing mounted, it will basically go somewhere in there, just lower. So, and then that's our mid plate, and this is 1/4 inch aluminum. This is 1/8 inch steel. Something else to add about the mid plate is this mid plate will actually come when we're all said and done here. It'll actually be part of the firewall of the car. So, all right, I'm going to put you back in the stand and let you watch the big dog work its magic. Okay, so right now I've got these kind of temporarily placed in here. I've got my big Mama Jamma strong arm, strong hand clamps, squeezing those against the K member of the frame. Let's see if I can get a better view. See, they're just kind of in there. That's my best guess where they actually are supposed to set. So now we're gonna move on to this tranny mount and get it kind of where it should be, and uh, just keep jamming forward on this until we can get to the point where we can get out a tape measure and start squaring stuff up and coming up with a good plan. So once again, this is the Speedway cross member, transmission cross member. We're gonna get this set up kind of where we want it. The so there's about 3,000 different ways if you listen to everyone on the internet. Everything from transmission should be, if the motor's solid mounted, the transmission should be solid mounted. If the and vice versa, there's guys that claim and will spout off as much as they can to say that the transmission should be solid mounted if you got solid motor mounts. Let me share my experience with this. So this is my own personal experience because I once listened to some jackass on the internet. The fact of the matter is, the tail shaft of the transmission is actually pretty tough. The tail housing, the bell housing of a transmission, not so tough. In fact, it will explode. It's not tough at all because it's a lot of surface area and a lot of flat. Basically big areas for cracks to spread rapidly. So if you're going to solid motor mount an engine, always, in my opinion, use a factory tranny mount on the transmission. In my case, I did not use a factory tranny mount. In fact, I solid mounted it after doing some reading and taking some opinions of people that shouldn't have been given them. And basically, I put solid motor mounts in. I solid motored the mount of the transmission, and the very next weekend I headed up to Douglas, Wyoming, to a drag race. And on the very first pass, about 60 foot out of the hole, I was driving an El Camino at the time, which I still have it. I'll show it to you guys someday. Basically, the Turbo 400 that was in the car exploded, turned upside down under the car, and what happened was it busted the entire bell housing off the transmission, because you have to have something that flexes. The benefits of solid motor mounts in a racing application are fantastic. There's no reason to solid mount your tranny. Don't do it. In my experience, it's a horrible idea. All right, we'll move on to getting this cross. All right, guys. So as it stands right now, the frame and the motor mounts just being clamped in, and the frame. So as it stands right now, guys, the tranny is being held up by its mount, and the engine is kind of being held up by its mount. I think what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start, basically moving this stuff around till it's square in the chassis, and then so I'm gonna set this the tranny cross member to square, and I'm gonna tack it. Then I'm gonna come around and I'm gonna set. I'm also gonna make sure that the tranny's in the middle, and we don't need to do some goofy stuff there. But then I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that the motor is where it needs to be, measure it out, and tack it in place. Um, and hopefully we can have this thing kind of setting under its own, on its own weight here in the next few minutes. All right, so we've got the motor mounts clamped. We're going to pull this pulley off, and I'm going to center the engine in the chassis off the crankshaft center line. The other thing we want to make sure of is that the transmission's centered up. I'm actually going to start there. So I'm gonna center that rear cross member up that we just tacked in, and get that really just in its home. Then we'll move to the front and check back and forth and make sure. If you're following this far, I mean, you got to be doing something similar. I'm not sure, but maybe you just want to see me struggle through life. But the whole point of putting in the temporary motor mounts was to get the motor in its home, in its place, very close to factory location. So I might point out a Tri-5 6 cylinders mount in this hole here, these two front holes, and V8s mount in the two rear holes, and that would be a clamshell. So judging by where, in a small block, this would be these two holes, and there'd be a cuff, and then the mount would go through that hole. Same over here. So judging by where we're at with this, we're actually just slightly forward of a small block. Maybe a half to 3/4 of an inch, which is just freaking perfect for a big block Chevy. So instead of a conventional motor mount, this is the mount that's going to go in this in the end. And so obviously I've got some a little trimming to do here to get this thing to fit right, but this is the gist of it. And the this is a goofy one. This actually seems like it could be wrong. A goofy ass. Let me grab a different one. I think that one's a small block. It is. That's a small block one. All right, guys, I think what I'm going to do is do a second half to this video. So I was going to go ahead and set up this front motor plate. Turns out I've actually got the wrong motor plate to fit the first generation big block. If you take a peek here at the water pump ports, these are at an angle. These are straight up and down. I believe this is for a down. I believe this plate's for a late model big block and not a first generation like this one. So I'm going to go ahead and order a new front plate, and we'll put that in part of the next video. In the next episode too, we'll go ahead and fit the mid plate. Obviously, I've got to account for this when I set up the front plate. This thickness, which is an 1/8 inch, being between the motor and transmission. Transmission is not going to move back any. Motor's going to move forward, so I'll have to cheat that in here. But we need to install this. We need to install that front plate. And we need to move on to suspension. And well, actually, after we get the mid plate in and kind of mocked up, we're gonna bolt a Hemi to that power glide and get that set up. So pretty excited about doing this with the dual engine thing. It's kind of a unique situation, and honestly, I think it's pretty cool. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe, and get out in your shop and build something. That's the most important thing. You'll learn way more doing it yourself than you ever will watching some jackass like me do it. So, all right, well, catch you on the next one. Thanks.